Dan Jarafsky, a professor of linguistics at Stanford University, discovered using long words to describe a dish is a sign of an expensive restaurant. In his hugely entertaining book, The Language of Food, out today, Jarafsky explains that every increase of one letter in the average length of words describing a dish is associated with an increase of 69 cents in the price of that dish. In a study of 6,500 menus, Jarafsky found that the words exotic and spices also raise the price of a dish. But linguistic fillers like mouth-watering, sublime, and crispy tend to feature more often on cheap menus. At the expensive restaurant, you're supposed to assume that the crispy food will be crispy, Jarafsky said in a telephone interview. The cheaper restaurants are a little worried that you might not know. It's a kind of status anxiety. The same applies to real and proper. If your menu promises you real crab meat or proper maple syrup, you're probably not at the Dorchester. Jarafsky's research shows that for each positive vague word such as delicious, tasty, or terrific, the average price of the dish costs 8 cents less. And adjectives such as rich, chunky, and zesty reduce the price of a dish by a whole 3 cents. Choice also tells you a thing or two about the price. The cheaper the establishment, the more choice you're given. Menus that run to 6 pages or more are quite common in Chinese takeaways and high-street curry houses. Cheaper menus are also more likely to offer food cooked your way. But if it's the chef that's doing the choosing, chef's selection, chef's choice, then you can expect to pay a lot more for your meal. On the top end of the spectrum, some Michelin-starred restaurants have dispensed with menus altogether and offer blind tasting instead. In other words, you only get to see the menu after you've eaten the food. I wasn't sure if Jarafsky's findings applied to the UK, so I asked him to take a look at a couple of local menus to see if the rules are the same this side of the pond. I chose 2 breakfast menus. Aqua Shard, London, expensive, and Wild Zucchini's Cockermouth, cheap. Aqua Shard offers working-class fare at very unworking-class prices, greasy spoon sandwiches for £8.50. There is a tradition in more expensive menus to just give the name of the dish and then list the ingredients, separated with commas, said Jarafsky, referring to the Aqua Shard menu. So we have lobster Benedict, Colchester blue lobster, 2 poached eggs, toasted English muffins, hollandaise. Not even hollandaise sauce. It's a terse, minimalist list. Another hallmark of an expensive restaurant is telling you the provenance of all the produce. The Aqua Shard menu ranges from the hyper-local Bermondsey salted ricotta to the very distant Tahitian vanilla jam. Our research found that the mention of provenance is 15 times more frequent and expensive than cheap restaurants, said Jarafsky. And it looks like that ratio may be even higher in the UK. This one, Aqua Shard, is almost a parody. It tells you where everything comes from. Wild Zucchinis, on the other hand, doesn't mention the provenance of anything except French-Canadian maple syrup. And the menu is anything but terse, la French-Canadian. A stack of fluffy pancakes with streaky bacon and proper maple syrup. Alternatively, why not try out fruity French toasts? Oh la la, note the promise of proper maple syrup and fluffy pancakes. Now that's status anxiety. The use of macaronic, the mishmash of French and English, also signals that Wild Zucchini's is cheaper than Aqua Shard. From the late 19th century until the 1970s, the use of macaronic was a sign of an upmarket restaurant. Jarafsky found that pricier restaurants from the early 1900s were 5 times more likely than cheaper restaurants to sprinkle their menu with French. French was the language of status in fine food. In the 1960s and 1970s, French was still being used by high-end restaurants, Jarafsky said. but it was beginning to be appropriated by cheaper restaurants. When restaurants began offering flaming coffee Diablo, prepared en vue of guest, and la crab meat cocktail. It was the beginning of the end. Today, restaurants only get away with macaronic when it's done tongue-in-cheek, as is hopefully intended by the wild zucchini's menu. Of course, foreign words have not been banished from menus. Sobrabariga sounds more appetizing than flank steak, and cavatappi sounds more exotic than corkscrew pasta. But who knows what the status indicators will be 20 years from now. Maybe macaronic will make a comeback in fancy restaurants. Status, like cool, is a constantly moving target.